What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of On the Road to Victory. I am your host, Jimmy Smith, and I hope you're all having yourselves a great weekend. We are continuing the free agent series here today. Not a live one, but would still love to hear your thoughts down below on this one. But a lot of work into this, the wide receivers, and we've got a lot to talk about here. So, like 83, I think it was, and I've got my top 20 fits. So, lot to talk about, but I'd love to hear your top picks here for who the Eagles should be looking at. We'll talk about the draft, all that stuff, all the ammo the Eagles have this offseason. You'll get to know who's on the roster, who's free agents, everything you need to know, and then we'll look at all these guys. But again, appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you hitting that like button, hitting the subscribe button, and tuning in and commenting down below, man. Always happy to talk some birds, especially during the sicko season where, my Lord, it's just dire times. Now, between work, trying to put together this free agent series, try to get this room a little more spruced up. Got a lot going on, but I'd love to hear from you. I know everybody is busy out there, but let's get this bad boy started. Hopefully you saw the quarterback and running back episodes already. Some great stuff out there, some great options for the Eagles, but let's go, baby. Let's take a look at what Howie is working with here, what the Eagles are going to be able to do this offseason with free agency and the draft, the new league year starting on March 15th. So we've got, now that we added Aquara, dropped a little bit, now 19.9 million in cap space. So we've got future cap space. You want to sign some guys, add some dummy years on, giving some guys some extensions. But you see in the draft, we will be focusing on some positions. And I do think we'll look to get a little younger here. Look, we're going to need some talent probably in both free agency and the draft, though. So we're going to talk about every position, but the importance level, I think wide receiver, there is obviously we have, the best duo in the league, but, you're going to want to give, an extension here to Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. We talk about, restructuring him next year. You don't really have to this year, about $12 million cap hit. You can't really do much that a little under 200K. You could, change there by restructuring, but you could open up money in the future. Now, we don't really need money. I've told you that we can open up to, 30, 40 million if we want. We've already got around 20. So we could be looking at 50, 60 million here, man. Maybe more realistically around 40, but that's a lot to work with here. So let's take a look at what the Eagles got going on at this position. Why we're talking about there is some importance here. So yeah, you've got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, but beyond that, Britton Covey's the only guy under contract. Now, you just added some reserve future guys a couple weeks ago. If you missed any of those videos, go check them out, but not a Harris, Hebert, Davis, and Watkins there. So some, young guys that are, fighting for a job in the summer. And look, man, people get, worked up about these. It's the summer. You're going to add players to have a 90-man roster. Everybody's going to be competing. You'll still be drafting, adding in free agency, but we've got some free agents. Julio, Quez, Alameda. I feel a certain way. We'll talk about that now. Quez and Julio, I'm pretty good on. Alameda, I would consider. So we'll talk about that, but the Eagles need some help beyond wide receiver too. And Britton Covey, love to see his continued development, see if we could use him on offense. But there are some options out here. And obviously, we'll get into the draft series once this free agency series is over. But we're here to talk about some free agent wide receivers. And there are some big ones here. But as I mentioned, the Eagles got some top dogs. We got to worry about, giving Devontae Smith that extension, and you don't have to worry. It'll actually free up some cap space. We talked about that in an earlier show. Go check that out, how to create cap space. But we have, options here, and I think AJ Brown, he's going to be sticking around for the next few years. He'll be a free agent in 2027. There is an out in 2025, but I think he stays here. I'm ready to rock with those guys, build around them, get a young guy. But let's look at some of these free agents, and I'll explain here. You've got some exclusive rights guys. These are guys with 2 years or less accrued, so that they essentially get a tender on them, and they either sign with that team they were with, or they pretty much don't play for anyone. If that team doesn't tender them, they become an unrestricted free agent. So some of these guys could be retained by their team. If not, they will become unrestricted, but we're not going to talk really about them because, again, we'll see if they're tendered, and we'll do this show again after the draft and all that stuff. I'll mix it all in. We'll have recaps of some of these people that become, unrestricted free agents when they get cut. So now the restricted guys, these guys have 3 or more accrued seasons, but not the 4, usually undrafted guys, some kind of injury that stopped them from getting that 4th year. So they're restricted, and there's 3 different tenders that people can put on them. They can put a first round tender, second round. If these guys are undrafted, it's a right to refusal. So somebody could try to sign them, but that team could match them. If they were drafted somewhere, that team could have to match that draft pick of where they were. So not only do they have to sign them, they have to give up a draft pick to that team. So it's helping teams keep that homegrown talent. So some of these guys will be staying home. Maybe if they aren't tendered, they become unrestricted. Now, unrestricted, you've got lots and lots of players. So you could take a gander here. You see there's some top dogs out there. T. Higgins. Don't think that he'll go back to Cincinnati. Maybe he wants to go be number 1 somewhere, not be second fiddle to Jamar Chase. But got Evans, Pittman, Ridley, Brown. I mean, there are some big ones there. But as you start to read, you're like, all right. Then it kind of just drops off. So you've got some guys that could be starters, and then you can mix it up here. And some of these guys could be wide receiver 3. Some would be 4. Some could be 5 on teams. So, but you've got some talent here. Some veteran guys, Odell, Michael Thomas. You've got Reynolds and Shepard. A lot of guys are out here available. And, you've already seen the restricted and exclusive rights, but that was only a few. You've obviously got like over 60 unrestricted free agents that can sign anywhere they want. So whether you're looking for a young guy, a veteran, a slot, an outside, a lot of options out there. And again, as I've said, I think the Eagles could look to get younger here, but why not add a veteran as well? Really upgrade this room behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So you see a plentiful amount of names there. And there's another list as well of, wide receiver 3 and 4 guys. This is, not really your starting caliber guys on this page, but some guys that maybe, in the new situation, like Chase Claypool pictured here, maybe he could, get his act together. I know a lot of people are fans of him, but really just don't like that attitude that he's had. That really, man, he's been given some opportunities. Sucks to see. Because he's a very talented kid, but a lot of options here. And I don't know that you need to look for anybody, to try to save right now when you're trying to save your team. You need guys that are leaders. We need to get our crap together. So you see some back end guys, and I did add some of them just to talk about some of these guys, because again, I think you should be looking to get younger if you're the Eagles. But, there's still options you could add as wide receiver 4, 5, whatever. And, I'm not against keeping Covey too. So I'm just saying you got to add to that room, especially with those 3 free agents we have there. So looking to really replace 3 of those, maybe 2 positions. So again, a lot of competition as well. So just because you add guys in free agency doesn't mean they're making the team. It's just making the competition better, making people better on this team. So let's talk about it now. Hope you're enjoying the show. Let me know who you like out of those free agents. I'm going to get into my top 20 here, that how we should be taking a look at, and we'll talk about why. I'll try to breeze through this as fast as I can, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, you can give me your top 3, top 5, top 10, top 20, top 50, whatever is on your mind. I'd love to hear it. Wide receivers, I know everybody loves to talk about, one of my favorite positions, the position I played. So let's talk about it, baby. And we're starting off with Braxton Berrios, so somebody we have talked about for a couple of years. When he was with the Jets there, the guy's got return capability. We like that, right? Yeah, well, guess what? We've got that. We've got that in Covey, and we've got, Isaiah Rodgers now coming off suspension that we signed last year. So don't really need help there. He is decent in the slot, but for me, you see the yards per reception, yards per game, and then the next list starts at yards after contact per reception. I want to see guys that are making plays after they are contacted, not yards after catch, after contact. And then the same for the yards after catch per contact or per rush down at the bottom. So he had 1 rush for 11 yards. He got hit at 1 yard, got 10 more yards. So that's what that means. Good to see that. And Berrios, he can obviously help you in the return game. So maybe you bring him in just to push Covey, but would not be against adding competition there with the little guy and really pushing Covey to become not only a good punt returner. And, the kid needed time to develop. He's an undrafted kid, his 2nd year. Now that'll be his 3rd. This, obviously Braxton Berrios, a little different situation. He will be in his 7th year, played for the, he was drafted by the Patriots, and then he went to the Jets. So we'll see what becomes of Berrios there. But I think that, he is a decent option. Now, another option, a guy that could play the slot, former Philadelphia Eagle, obviously played for the Raiders and Pats. And people have been asking me about him. And look, I'm not against him, but he's at number 19 for a reason. I like Nelson Aguilar. He had a decent year in a crowded room. Weird to say with the Ravens, but they did add a lot there. But look, man, going into his 10th year out of USC, and he only had 2 drops last year, so that's great. Started 3 games, had 10.9 yards per reception there. So a good year for him. But I think there's better options. But if you want to add a veteran, not against Nelson Aguilar. Now, up next, I've got Kendrick Bourne from the Patriots. And unfortunately, got himself banged up end of the year on IR, only played in 8 games there. But look, at 11 yards per reception, 50.8 yards per game, 5.5 yards after contact per reception. So he's getting hit, but he's getting more yards. He's getting those first downs. He's making plays. Like to see that. 1 drop, 1 fumble in those 8 games. So look, he's somebody that was undrafted in 17, but with San Fran, I think that he showed promise. He showed promise with New England, even just last year with Mac Jones throwing it to him. So I like this kid, and it wouldn't be a horrible option, but got him down here near the end with those injuries. And the same goes for DJ Chark. Banged up a little bit, but, great athleticism, size. I like DJ Chark's game, but he just kind of hasn't shown anything. Now, 15 yards per reception last year, 5 touchdowns. So he kind of started to spark a little bit. So I do like DJ Chark. There is talent there. And, going into his 7th season here, I think that there is some hope for him still. And just really couldn't be unlocked with the Jags or the Lions. But I think that, in the right system, he could do well. And maybe with the Eagles, help take off the top. And he is 6'3", 200 pounds. I wouldn't be against it at all. So, again, there's some good options. And if you could get him on the cheap, I think that would be a pretty damn good option. So, why the hell not? Now, number 16, Michael Thomas, Old Man River. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why the hell would we want it? We just did this with Julio. But, look, he looked decent when he was healthy. Now, the key is when healthy. Now, you got to stay younger. You got to add those players I talked about in the beginning of the show. But hell, if you want to add a veteran presence there, this guy coming into his 9th year, I think we know he's still got the talent. He had 3 drops last year, but if he stays healthy, he's a good option. But he's not even in my top 15. I know a lot of people are high on him. But again, for me, I think there are better options. Now, in front of him, I've got someone like Isaiah McKenzie. So that should tell you I'm not so high on Michael Thomas, but not against it. Now, Isaiah McKenzie, this is a kid that, brings you that return capability as well. And he can be a home run hitter. Didn't do too much of that last year. But, again, got kind of pushed down. Josh Downs really stepped it up, the rookie out of North Carolina. So, you got this kid out of Georgia. Maybe you want to, reconcile him with those Georgia boys. And look, I think there's a lot of talent there. You saw it when he was with the Bills and a little bit with the Broncos there. But I think that there is talent there. And if you want to get somebody really cheap, looking around the $3-5 million range, why not go for an Isaiah McKenzie? Now, up next, I've got Devin Duvernay. And, these, again, McKenzie, these guys, you're looking at the wide receiver 4, guys that really are cheap. So that's my thought process here. You obviously got a great duo. You don't have to go after anybody crazy. But you can see Duvernay here, only played in 13 games, but he's got some issues with falling down the depth chart, I think was more the case there for him. But I like Duvernay. He brings a lot of talent. He can help you all over the place. And, he had some rushes. He had some things going for him. I think, some of those other guys stepped up, so he didn't get to show much. But, out of Texas, 3rd rounder, this kid does have some talent, and he's still very young, 26 years old. Why not take a shot on a kid like him? Wouldn't be against it. Now, up next, I've got Jalen Guyton. And yeah, he didn't have a great year, and he did have some opportunities with those injuries there. And I thought maybe, with Kellen Moore, knowing him, obviously he started his career in Dallas, undrafted in 2019. But Kellen Moore was really able to do some things with this young man. And I think, obviously he kept him around. And, going to the Chargers, I think obviously was bigger for him. He wasn't there in Dallas for long. But this past year, you thought maybe Kellen Moore, okay, that was the guy that found him there. There would be something, but hey, maybe they could find something here with the Eagles, that Kellen Moore, Jalen Guyton connection. Maybe he knows how to use him, and you could find something. And again, this would be like your wide receiver 4. I'm not saying like you got to go out and, maybe you could sign him for $2 million, $3 million a year, a very small contract, but someone familiar with what Kellen Moore is trying to do. So not against that at all. And let me know how you're feeling, but we're rolling through these now. At number 12, I've got coming up Tyler Boyd. Now, I know you're thinking, like, why the hell do you not have him higher? Now, for me, I think Tyler Boyd's going to demand a little bit more money, maybe around the 10, 13-ish range. I'm not really sure, but I don't think we need to pay a wide receiver 3 like that. I think you could go younger. And he had 5 drops last year. He had some opportunity with some injuries there to Higgins and Chase, and I just don't know that he's the same guy. He's coming into his 9th year. He's going to be 30 years old. I still think Tyler Boyd's very talented. I just don't know that the Eagles have to spend that kind of money on a wide receiver there. So maybe we pass on it. And I'm going to show you another veteran, and I've got him in front of him because he actually had a better year, in my opinion, in the sense that he only had 2 drops, 10.9 yards per reception there. I thought for a small period there, Odell was killing it, looking like himself again. He'll be coming into his 11th season. He will be 32. So I don't have him in my top 10. But look, I know for years people have been asking about Odell Beckham Jr. And I do like his game. I'm a fan of Odell, but I just think that, there are better options out there than going with a veteran like him. But if he signs a team-friendly deal to come play with AJ, Devontae, help out Jalen Hurts, I think that'd be really cool. And I would not be against it at all. Now, jumping into this top 10, starting off with Demarcus Robinson. And thought he looked great in a crowded Los Angeles Rams room there with Puka shining and obviously Cooper Kupp there. But this dude was really able to step out there, a former 4th round pick in 2016, spent time with the Chiefs and the Ravens, but 14.3 yards per reception last year. He had 1 rush for 23 yards there, had a kick return. He can help you all over. He is a weapon. I think his nickname is the real deal. So, I like this kid. I like his game. 6'1", 203 pounds, and I think you can use him all over. And I would not be against the Eagles adding someone like him. Now, number 9, and if you're noticing, these like more slot guys, but you can use them outside. Someone like Demarcus Robinson, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, they are interchangeable. You can use them as slot guys. So, getting some of these receivers, that really bring something to the table. And I think Agnew, more of your slot guy. Obviously 5'10", 190 here, but a gadget player. He was a former corner, I do believe, if I remember correctly, when he was spending time there with Detroit. But he is a killer in the kick return game, punt return game. He can do it all. 26.1 yards per kick return, 10.3 yards per punt return. You can see there, but 16.1 yards per reception, only 14 catches. But, given the opportunity, I think you can really use this dude. And he's 28 years old, so maybe you try to get him for on the cheap there, but would not be against adding Jamal Agnew. Now, at number 8 here, we've got Josh Reynolds, and I really like this dude's game. Liked him with the Rams there, and I think, he's really been doing well with the Lions the last couple of years here. And, he's just got that tough-nosed football that I think would fit in well with the Eagles. 6'3", 194, can really help you on the inside. I think 15.2 yards per reception, really good. 5 touchdowns, 4.3 yards after contact per reception there. He did have 4 drops, though. I don't like that. But when called upon, I thought he did well. But those drops, man, they will get you sometimes. But I like Josh Reynolds, a fan of his game. Now, this is a weird one at number 7. You may think this is really odd to have him this high, but I like Laviska Shenault. I'm not one of the, like a fanboy where it's like, oh, we got to get him. I think you could sign him for like a league minimum kind of deal. Be like, look, man, you haven't done much. You were injured last year, ended up on IR. But look, out of Colorado, a former 2nd round pick, and this will be his 5th year. But 6'1", 220, we know this dude's very athletic, can help you all over the place, running the ball. You see 4.6 yards per rush, and then 2.4 yards after contact per rush, and then 8.5 yards after contact per reception. That's pretty damn good, man. So very small sample size, but I think that this dude, given the right opportunity, a wide receiver 4, 5 here, and using him as a running back receiver, getting more motion involved. We talked about the short intermediate throws. I think this kid could really fit into what we're trying to do here, and I would not be against adding him. So got him at number 7 there. And let me know how you feel about Shenault. But again, this just gives you depth at return, gives you depth at receiver, but I'm not looking as a starter. I just think he needs a change of scenery, but still only 25 years old. So you never know. Now, another young wide receiver, 26 years old, Darnell Mooney, and hasn't really been able to unlock what, we saw glimpses of hope from Mooney. But, I mean, really just sometimes where you're just like, okay, this dude's not going to do anything. But his 2nd year, he had a 1,000-yard season. Last year, only 414 yards. Just really, I don't know, man. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for him. But 13.4 yards per reception, 5.8 yards after contact per reception there. Had 3 drops, but he's still young, man. And I know he's very talented. So this, again, it's like Chenault. If you can get him for the cheap, maybe you get a steal, you unlock something from him, and hey, you never know. Now in the top 5, number 5, Gabe Davis. And let me know your top 5, how you're feeling about the 15 behind these guys. Do you have some other players in there? Maybe they're coming up. Let me know how you feel. But Gabe Davis here. The reason I have him number 5, I really kind of wanted to put him at number 1. 6'2", 225 now. He is very up and down. 81 targets, 45 reception, only 3 drops. But Josh Allen, just kind of launching him out there at the time. But 746 yards, 7 touchdowns, 16.6 yards per reception. So I like that. Don't like the 3 drops, but that's not too horrible. 4th round pick out of UCF coming into his 5th year. But I think this is the kind of kid that could get some $13 to $15 million range money, where I don't think, again, like with Tyler Boyd, that I want to do that. But maybe you talk him down. He fits the system as wide receiver 3, can take off the top. A speedy dude for 6'2", 225. Could allow Devontae, AJ to play the slot as well, move people around, interchangeable receivers. I would not be against it. But if he's asking for a lot of money, that's why I don't have him at number 1. But number 4 here, a commander. Yeah, Curtis Samuel, man. And I loved Curtis Samuel's game. Loved what he was able to do with Carolina there for a few years. But coming into his 8th year now, and look, he's been doing well with Washington. Only missed 1 game this year, played all the games last year. So staying healthy. That year before, had a bad injury there, only played 5 games. But look, 9.9 yards per reception isn't the greatest. And the stats maybe don't show, but, Sam Howell throwing it to him, you got to keep all that stuff, take all the stats with a grain of salt there. But 27 years old. So if you're looking for one of those gadget players using in motion, the short intermediate throws we talk about, would not be against Curtis Samuel. Excuse me. I think that coming into his 8th season out of Ohio State, would not be against it, man. I really like his talent. And if, you put him with AJ, Devontae, he could be your wide receiver 3. You could add a young guy, have him as wide receiver 4. So maybe that would be an option. Now at number 3, we got another Kellen Moore sighting here. Another receiver that, because of that familiarity, I think, could be an option. And, he was there in Dallas with Kellen Moore. So, what we saw from Cedric Wilson. I thought, he did pretty good for a few years there, especially in that 3rd season with him. Got that contract from Miami because of it. Out of Boise State, 6th rounder. But again, that familiarity with Kellen Moore, knowing the system, 13.5 yards per reception there. And, only 1 drop. Had 3 touchdowns. And that's with, Tyreek Hill in front of you and, having Jalen in front of you. There's a lot of talent on that team, and still be able to get those guys. I think that, it was pretty impressive that he was able to shine a little bit, but he could get himself a decent contract. I don't think he would cost you too much. And again, with that familiarity, you have here, I think that I would be more than fine with getting someone like a Cedric Wilson. So let me know how you feel. Like, if you think that that's going to be something that goes into, obviously a lot of people feel like that's going to be, I don't think he stays with the Dolphins because, obviously with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill there, you got a lot of talent. But a lot of people will say because of Eagles' former coaches, they could, obviously connections help. But how about a connection with the team already? So at number 2, Olamide Zaccheaus. Now at running back, number 1 was an Eagle. So almost very close. Olamide Zaccheaus. Look, 5'8", 193. Don't let it fool you. Dude can play inside, outside. Love the versatility. Coming into his 6th season, first 4 seasons with the Falcons, really showed out, especially when Julio left. But he can help you all over the place. And 16.4 yards per reception, 5.2 yards after contact per reception. Had a couple touchdowns, and that's with AJ and Devontae there. But I felt like he could have really been used more. There were times where Julio and Quez were out snapping him. Unacceptable. I think if you bring him back, he could come back if you tell him, look, we're going to actually use you. I would be all for bringing Olamide back. Let's go would be one of my top options there. But one guy I wouldn't mind from a different team having, and I know he played for a team we don't like, but Noah Brown, that familiarity with Kellen Moore again. But former 7th round pick out of Ohio State, coming into his 8th season, veteran presence. Again, I want to get younger. So Covey and some other younger guy. And then Noah Brown, that makes a nice mix. Maybe you have a 6 guy in there, but 6'2", 215. And you saw some great glimpses with CJ Stroud there. I thought he did fantastic with those guys last year. Only played in 10 games, so you hate to see injuries, but maybe that helps you sign them to, a cheaper contract that you can actually afford there. Why, that's where I'm looking at. I'm not looking at Mike Evans, not looking at those top 5 guys that we saw there, because guys like Noah Brown, he has shown what he can do. And I think a very talented kid when healthy, 17.2 yards per reception, 6.8 yards after contact per reception. Don't like to see those 3 drops there, but for me, adding to this room would be key here. And obviously, again, I'm not talking about the top guys. And you saw those lists. You saw there's some talented guys: T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Pittman, Ridley, Marquise Brown. But I'm not thinking the Eagles are spending that 15 million, maybe close to $20 million range. And, like the top 13 to 15 players in the league, maybe more, are making at wide receiver are making around $15 million. So, I mean, Tyreek Hill makes like 30 mil. The top 10 are definitely making over like 22 mil. So, you pay wide receivers. Again, AJ Brown has a cap hit of like 12 mil. It's going to be, once you extend Devontae Smith, his cap hit's only like 5 mil. So it's not bad. 17 mil cap hit from your top 2. Go add another guy. His cap hit's only around like 2 million. I'm perfectly fine with a lot of those options right there. Then you draft someone, worry about 4 years from now, giving them an extension. So that's how you do this. And I think that will be the Eagles' plans. But a lot of options there at free agency. We'll definitely get into the draft as time draws near. But hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. You can always subscribe. And I would love to hear from you in those comments. And I will be back throughout the week. We'll talk about the tight ends, obviously very important to helping Jalen Hurts. Let's open things up. Kellen Moore, let's go. But tight ends, offensive line, we'll get the offense finished up. Then we'll jump into the defense, special teams, get you ready for the offseason here. And March 15th, free agency begins. Obviously, 52 hours before that, legal tampering period. So we'll stay active, but I'll have you prepared for that. We'll get through it position by position. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, I am Jimmy Smith, and this is On the Road to Victory. You all have yourselves a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there. And as always, say it with me now, go Birds!